Would you be able to address the issue of context in design?
A lot of people in the world think of designers as doing very simple things. You know, the sort of view that the general public still has probably of design is the graphic designer who does the beautiful piece of print, or the industrial designer who does a lamp or a sofa or something, or the interior designer who makes a room look nice. And so the real challenges have come from a greater increase in complexity. So first we had this chips revolution, you know, the started in the 70s and 80s, where machine intelligence made us need to design the way things behaved at a machine level as well as at a human level. So you had user interface design or interaction design. Then the internet became prevalent and everything suddenly becomes connected together in a much more dramatic way. And we find globalization, but we also find these huge expansions of context where people are starting to be interested and need to respond to the challenges and opportunities of the context expanding. So the social network, the internationalism, the overall sense that sustainability is about the whole planet rather than about a little piece of material.
What are some of the main issues facing the design industry today?
Yeah, I think of design as really in 4 levels. You know, the design awareness, which is really the general public. I mean, everybody does design things in the sense that they choose their clothes and where they live, and so they're making design decisions all the time, but they don't think of themselves as professional designers. On the other hand, you can help them with better awareness to make those decisions better. And that's the sort of democratization which we had with desktop publishing in graphic design, for example. Making everybody more fluent means that they tend to do better, but they also respect the value that a professional brings. And then above that level you have this professional skills, you know, people who've been to design school, the architects, the graphic designers, the industrial designers. And they tend in the past to have designed things which have already been decided by somebody else. You know, the boss says, make me a beautiful brochure saying this, or here's the product, we want another one like it but nicer. And so the design skills tend to be great at implementation, but they're not necessarily so great at deciding what to do in the first place. So above that you have a level which we call design thinking, which is really about interdisciplinary teams. It's not leaving the designing to just the designers, but having everybody in a team from a background of human science or business or engineering working with the designers to decide what to do next. So that becomes much more to do with innovation. And then at the top level I think you have design research, which is really trying to understand how to use research in your design process, but also to understand how research works. So, you know, if you think of the other arts like a poet or something, there are a lot of people who get PhDs in poetry, but they're not the good poets. They're not necessarily the actual designers. So I think at all those levels, you know, we can see an opportunity to do more, and design is maturing in those ways.
You just mentioned the concept of design thinking. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? How does this apply to innovation today?
Design thinking really is mostly about trying to decide what to do as opposed to just how to do it. Now, if we look at the way that innovation is thought of in the conventional business context, it tends to be a rather dull, rigorous process which doesn't allow for creativity very easily. So you tend therefore to always get steps forward which are very small, evolutionary steps. But if you really want to make a leap forward, there's an opportunity to harness the power of the intuitive, which is what designers do anyway, and harness the skills of designers, you know, the methods that we've developed after all these years of studying how to be good designers, but then have them applied by not just the designers, but other people in a team as well. So we find that if you put a team of a business person, a human scientist, a psychologist, some technical people and designers together and say, okay, well, use the design process, try and come up with alternatives, try and create prototypes, try and do observations of what people are like, try to make a framework, something new that synthesizes some new opportunity. All those things which are second nature to designers, when they're actually acted on by a group of people that's more than just designers, then you find that creativity and innovation seem to flow.
Do you believe that being user-centered is still one of the key objectives of design today?
If you think of design, you can think of the sort of business context and then the technology context and the people context. And if you think of most MIT kind of technology guys, or maybe Silicon Valley people, they tend to start with the technology and then go looking for an opportunity for a business plan and some people who might like their technology. And then if you start with the business side, most people who have an MBA or a venture capitalist will really think of a business concept first and move towards the people who might use the result and the technology to enable it. So what we do in design is always start from the people side. We're starting from trying to understand the latent needs and desires of people, and then seeing if we can find the technology and the business marrying to make that successful. And of course that usually happens for us as consultants because our clients come to us and they already have both the business and the technology to a large degree, but we always bring that people point of view as our starting point.
What are some of the key innovation lessons you've taken away from working with Ideo?
Innovation is a thing of where you have to be willing to fail a lot in order to succeed sooner, or fail early to succeed sooner. You know that if you look at the success rate with Silicon Valley startups, for example, it's a very small percentage that actually go forward to turn into huge companies. There are Googles in the world, but there are an awful lot of things that don't go quite that far. And so perhaps accepting that as part of the innovation process and trying to build it in early so that you actually say, okay, well, let's try an idea quickly, let's try lots of ideas quickly and get rid of most of them before we have to worry about taking it any further. So rather than sort of going down a focused tunnel towards an objective, we think of lots of alternatives and lots of failures as being the way to get a more likelihood of success in innovation.